I am fortunate that I decided to make this video today. Ironically, the topic of the video is water leak damage prevention, and my filming location is by the water heater, and I haven't been here for a while. When I came out, there was a little surprise waiting for me. I'm not sure where exactly it's leaking from. At first I thought maybe it's the upper element, it's leaking through there, and it kind of looks like it does. But then I saw condensation all over as well, and then there's a rusted fitting up above the water heater, so it might be leaking water from there too. So there's multiple spots where it could be leaking from. I'm gonna have to dig in a little further and pinpoint where exactly that water is coming from, but that is not the point of this video, so let's get back on topic. In this video, we're going to be going over this device right here, a water alarm that beeps obnoxiously loud when it detects water. The alarm that I have here is made by Watchdog, and it's one of the most basic, straightforward, simple design, low price, battery operated alarms you can get. If you're living in a house, especially if it's an older house, which is more likely to spring a leak somewhere, then having some of these devices is vital, and it'll probably save you thousands down the road. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this Watchdog alarm. This device is really simple, so it doesn't have a lot of components. One of the most important parts is, of course, the battery. It is battery operated, and you have to put in a 9-volt battery before anything works. To be safe, it's probably a good idea to replace these batteries every single year. And a good practice is to just take a Sharpie or some marker and write the date when you replace the battery right on the battery itself. There's nothing else on the sides of the alarm, but on the back, we do have a mounting hole. So if you want to mount this on the wall, you could put a screw on the wall and simply hang this right on that screw. And of course, the most important part is the water sensor, which is on the bottom of the device. An easy way to check if the alarm is working is to simply put your 2 fingers on the sensors. The beep is super loud and obnoxious, which is a good thing, because if there's a leak somewhere, you'd want to know about that right away. But if for some reason it's too loud for you, you can easily muffle it simply by putting a piece of tape right over this speaker part right here. One incredibly useful feature about this alarm is that the sensor detaches, and it has a 5-foot wire attached to it. So the sensor itself, the device, does not have to be in the same place as the sensor. This is incredibly useful for those hard to reach spots, like for example under a dishwasher. You can put the sensor under a dishwasher and then mount the alarm itself in one of the cabinets right next to the dishwasher. Or with a water heater and an air conditioner, if you have a drain pan under those, you can put the sensor in the drain pan and then mount the alarm somewhere on the wall next to it. And of course, you don't need to take the sensor out at all. You can simply put it down on the floor wherever you suspect there might be a leak, just like that. Next, let's test this thing and see how loud it really is. And while we're at it, I'm also going to check just how loud the beep really is. So according to this app, we got a maximum of 100 decibels. But that was the max reading. As far as I could tell, it was a steady 80 decibels, and it sounded just about as loud as a smoke detector. This was also with my phone right next to it. I'm gonna try to put my phone 5 feet away and try it one more time and see how loud it is from 5 feet. And from 5 feet away, it was 75 decibels, which is still pretty loud, but if you're across the house, the sound is probably gonna be pretty muffled. But according to the thousands of reviews on Amazon, this thing is loud enough, and if you're sleeping, it will wake you up. Some people that have been traumatized by water damage in the past buy a dozen of these things and put them all over the house. Under the sinks, in the cabinets, under the dishwasher, in the laundry room, by the washing machine, by the water heater, by the air conditioner, just everywhere where there can be a leak. I know that some plumbers install these things for all of their customers as part of their service because they feel it's that important. By the way, one tip from plumbers that I think is really good is to put a paper towel or a rag under the sensor. This will do 2 things. 1, it'll prevent false alarms. Depending on the location of the alarm, if you have it in the attic, there may be some condensation which could set off a false alarm. And at the same time, if there's just a little bit of water on the floor, but there's no standing water, that might not set the alarm off. But if you have a towel there underneath the sensor, then the alarm will go off even if there's just a little bit of water. Let's go see an example of what that would look like. Wow. When you're this close to it, it really does make your ears ring. As I was reading some reviews about this alarm before making this video, I came across a lot of reviews where people modified the alarm. I don't think this is necessary, but if you really feel like going above and beyond, this is an option. Some people will take an on-off switch and wire it in on the side of the alarm. That way you can turn it on or off whenever you like. There's 2 wires that come from the sensor. So if you wanted to do this and put a switch in on the side of your alarm, you would simply snip one of those wires and wire it in series with that switch. For anyone curious, the 2 solder points for the sensor wires are right on the bottom corner. So if you wanted to, you have room all around this little speaker to put in some switch, either on this side, up on top, or on this side. But if you're going to be cutting out any holes, I would suggest taking this apart before you cut anything, just to make sure you're not going to accidentally cut the wires or cut any of the board. And if you really want to be fancy, you could also add a test button to be able to test the unit just by pressing the button instead of using your finger. Again, I don't think this is necessary at all because you could simply lift it up and put your finger on it, but if that is something you want to do, I'm not going to talk you out of it. Another modification that I think is worthwhile is to extend the cable going to the sensor. You would simply snip the sensor wires somewhere in the middle and add in the extra length of cable to get you a really long sensor wire. To figure out if this is something you need or not, you could do a simple test. Just have one person downstairs at the basement or wherever your alarm is test the alarm by putting their finger on it or just putting it into a bowl of water, and then have another person at another place in the house, in the living room, in the bedroom, or across the house, and see how well he can hear the alarm when it goes off. If that person can barely hear that alarm, then you might want to take that watchdog alarm and actually route it somewhere else where you can hear it better. For example, one person said that his alarm sounded really muffled from his bedroom, so he routed it from the basement. He left the sensor by the sump pump, and he took the alarm and routed it into his laundry room on the first floor. And in the new location, he now claims that the box can practically wake up the dead. One Amazon review that I thought was so genius that I even printed it out because I don't want to paraphrase it. I'm just going to read it to you. I thought this was super clever. So this is what the guy did. I cut the end off and shaved the insulation off of the wires every few inches. Now you have a long wire that, if it gets wet, the alarm goes off for 13 bucks. One of my dogs has a marking problem. He pees to mark his territory, sometimes indoors. The first time he tried to mark the column with this wire wrapped around it was the last time he tried. Same goes for the length I routed along the sliding door that he used to mark. The loud alarm scared him good. He's given up on his habit of peeing indoors. That's the first time I've heard of somebody doing that, using the watchdog as literally a watchdog. There is a downside to this alarm though, and that is that you have to be home in order for it to work. If you're not home, no matter how loud or how long it beeps, that's not going to help you. But there is some good news with that. Many leaks are often small, slow leaks that do a lot of damage simply because the leak is not noticed right away. Like for example, if you have an air conditioner in the attic that is slowly leaking water underneath it, somehow it's getting past the drain pan, you're probably only going to notice that when you see a big spot forming on your ceiling. In cases like this, the watchdog alarm would save the day and allow you to catch the leak before it does any damage. But if you get unlucky and a big leak happens when you're not home, then that's a bad day. There is a solution for this if you're willing to spend the extra money. They do sell alarms that connect to your Wi-Fi and can send you an alert via email or text if something happens. One popular brand that I found is called MySpool. Their device connects to your Wi-Fi and sends you an alert every single time it detects water. It also measures temperature, which is pretty cool, and it plugs into an outlet, so you don't need to worry about batteries dying on you. So those are the benefits of a Wi-Fi alarm. The downside is that it costs more than 3 times the amount of the watchdog. If I were to buy a bunch of these for my house, I would probably buy 1 or 2 of the Wi-Fi ones and put them in locations where a leak would be the worst, and then I would put watchdogs in all of the other locations, like the shower in the basement that never gets used. And since I discovered that my water heater has a slow leak, I'm going to go ahead and put this watchdog right on the bottom corner over there. And of course, I do want to put a napkin under that, because there is a slight little gap right on the bottom. So unless there's standing water, this alarm might not go off. But I want it to work even if there is no standing water and just the wood is wet. And a napkin or a rag is gonna help me do just that. If you have any water damage stories of your own or water alarm stories, we would love it if you can share those with us in the comments below. And if you're still here and not yet in the comment section below, let me tell you a plumber joke. So a plumber goes to a doctor's house and fixes the toilet, and when he comes back upstairs, he hands the doctor the bill. The doctor takes a look at the bill and he says, "Wow, I'm a doctor and I can barely afford this." The plumber says, "Yeah, I feel you, buddy. When I was a doctor, I could barely afford those type of bills too."